So what we're gonna talk about here is Game Pass versus PlayPass.
Patent pending for
Um,
PlayPass.
Patent pending, yes.
So, so here's the thing. Like we're talking about this off recording before. How with Microsoft, they're presenting more value than quality, and that's not to bash all the games on Game Pass. Like I'm gonna pull the library up real quick. Like today, we just got indie games like Windjammers, which is like disc tossing. I thought it was air hockey, but it's actually disc tossing. We got Paparazzi, and then we got games like the Hitman trilogy on here. We have an old PSP exclusive Trigger Happy Havoc, whatever, that Dank Parpa game. You have the Mass Effect collection. Like there is quality here. But, like for instance, like let's compare something like Halo Infinite to Spider-Man, for example. It's like apples to oranges. That's not disparaging Halo Infinite in any way, shape, or form. Halo Infinite is fantastic. It's not complete. So I understand Sony's point of view where the business model isn't sustainable, and Microsoft's answer is just to buy other companies and just flatten up Games Pass. Because if you really think about it, aside from the day one launches, Microsoft is heavily relying on a bigger catalog. Like, if you look on Games Pass, especially on PC, a lot of the big chunk of games like Age of Empires 1 through 4 is on here. You have all of EA's entire library. So, you can make the argument that, Microsoft first party games day one are great. But for example, I thought Gears 5 was a piece of shit. I didn't like it. Halo Infinite is still broken. We're going to get into that later. The only seemingly working games at launch day one are the Forza games. And I think Microsoft knows that's their their bread and butter, not so much sales wise, but in terms of a tech demo, the way, what Gran Turismo is for PlayStation. And, where I think Sony has the only chance to uppercut Microsoft is, if they heavily invest, or I guess rebrand PlayStation Now into what I'm just dubbing PlayPass for now, because all the patents seem to be indicating they're having some kind of service like Game Pass for backwards compatibility. And you and I disagreed a little bit before where, you don't think that the backwards compatibility, like there's a finite amount of attraction that can pull. I kind of disagree, mainly because, it's been all throughout, the past 5 to 7 years rather with the PS4, people have been clamoring for PS3 emulation so much now that RCPCX3, that PS3 emulator is gaining a lot of traction. I think a third or 2/3 of the entire PS3 library is completable on the emulator. I tried it out myself using Bleach Resurrection, a game I had never had as a kid and I wanted to play. So that's my thing. As somebody who never had a PS3 and only got a PS2 late into its life cycle, but always had a PSP, I'm heavily invested, or I have a heavy interest in Sony backwards compatibility. And I think, people, are shitting on Sony and their lack of value now. But I still think Sony's back catalog of first-party games is such a treasure chest that it's not going to hold, a campfire to Games Pass per se, but it can definitely hold its own against Games Pass. It's definitely not going to generate anywhere near the subscribers unless Sony does something wild like, hey, God of War 2, Horizon 2, and Spider-Man 2 are all on PlayPass day one. But I really do think now Sony has two ways to respond. Either add Games Pass on Xbox on their PlayStation platform, which I don't think that's going to happen. I think we have a better shot of Nintendo adding Games Pass to the Switch than we do of the PS5 adding Games Pass to Sony adding Games Pass to the PS5. I do, however, think that they're going to expand the backwards compatibility. I fucking hope that PS3 runs natively on the PS5. That's what I don't understand too. I don't understand why they're not looking into software solutions, because again, my PC can run PS3 games on here, emulation, and the PS5 is a mid-range to high-end PC on paper. So, I really think the future of Sony kind of relies on them going back to the past a little bit. And otherwise, I think they're kind of doomed to kind of get not lost in irrelevancy, but kind of lose the value wars. Because again, my point still stands. Microsoft's first party games are good. They're not great. And now more than ever, their first party games, I kind of want to call them second party games, because let's face it, Skyrim isn't a first party game. It's made by Bethesda. Microsoft just owns the IP. And that's going to be the same thing with Activision going forward. I really do think Sony has to lean into their backwards compatibility lineup even more, because for example, when I remember that E3 when Microsoft announced backwards compatibility for 360 and original Xbox games, which blew everyone out of the water, by the way. And people were doubting that they were going to do it, and B, it wasn't going to matter in terms of the console wars, but people stepped up. People started buying Xboxes when backwards compatibility became the thing, because more than not, gamers like choice. And I'm kind of sounding like a hypocrite here because GamePass is the ultimate way to have choice. But, you know, fanboys are fanboys, and Sony fanboys want their choice too. So I really think that backwards compatibility on the PS5 end with all the PlayStation generations is going to be the only real way to contend with GamePass.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. And I think backwards compatibility is something definitely that brings value to the table. But it's like you said, I think Sony has to just start kind of competing with Game Pass as far as a live service fee, kind of like a Netflix, you know, releasing new IPs here. And it just, the reason why Game Pass is so appealing is because they get new releases day one. And they also have a backlog of backwards compatibility games also. So it's kind of like Microsoft kind of has the best of both worlds here. Sure, it's not taking away anything from Sony's catalog of games. You know, they definitely have a big collection of games that players, even including myself, want to play. You know, I want to go back and play the original Metal Gear Solid, which as of right now is not available on PlayStation 5, and I'm actually trying to emulate that onto my PC as we speak.
Or like, dude, like, not even that. Metal Gear Solid 4 is still locked on the PS3. There is no way to play that game.
Yep, that's true. That's true. And I think that largely has to kind of do with Sony's, I don't want to use the term anti-consumerism, but it kind of feels like that in a way.
No, they're definitely anti-consumer. Remember how against cross-platform play they were at the beginning of this generation? They were never going to allow it, and then they had to cave in because Xbox did it first. Right. Nintendo, who never plays nice with anybody, did it second. So they were kind of in a position where, oh shit, we have to do it now. And to kind of piggyback off your point off, you know, the day one releases and the value of Games Pass, I think the value of Games Pass and why Sony really can't compete with it is that ultimately the value of Games Pass is subjective. And what I mean by that is that take somebody like me who has Games Pass Ultimate. I have an Xbox. I don't have a Series X at the moment because I can't fucking find one. I have a One X, I have my phone, and I have my PC. I've played Halo Wars on my phone on a controller with no latency, and I'm able to take that game save, finish it on my PC when I would come back from work. Yes, I'm playing Halo Wars at work sometimes. I'm not a good employee.
That's why, in my opinion, I can actually see Game Pass coming to the PlayStation platform. Phil Spencer's ideologies isn't about a console war anymore. They're trying to compete with the likes of Apple, Google, Amazon, and I guess to kind of uplift the gaming industry, Phil Spencer is going over to Sony and say, look, you guys can either be a part of this or be destroyed. That's how I'm seeing it.
The thing too is that I agree with you too, because with Sony, they really can't compete. Like, for example, they bought companies like they bought Gaikai specifically to turn it into PlayStation Now. They bought Gaikai and invested in their technology or whatever that streaming company was.
I think now to kind of play devil's advocate, I guess is the term. If Game Pass were to come to the PlayStation side, what would that make PlayStation? Would that even make PlayStation a viable option as far as, you know, would someone buy a PlayStation anymore?
Yeah, because see, here's the thing. Remember when like the tables were turned and, you know, the Xbox One, the debut was really shitty and people were like, all right, I'm just gonna buy a PlayStation and I'll get the Xbox for exclusives or whatever. Now that point is even more moot because, you know, or like there isn't a point to buy multi-plats on PS4 because, for example, Activision is one of the biggest publishers of multi-plats like Call of Duty, the Crash Bandicoot games, Bethesda too. You know, obviously, I think from the get, the point of Bethesda games was to make them Microsoft exclusive. Like, look at Morrowind. Morrowind was not on PS2, it was on Xbox because Xbox was the only machine that could handle it. In fact, there were specific RAM tricks that only the Xbox could do that PlayStation 2 couldn't. So I think that was the intent from the get with Bethesda. With Activision, I'm not so sure. I think, like, for instance, there's no doubt in my mind Guitar Hero, if it comes back, will be an Xbox exclusive. I think that'll be locked on Xbox. Because ironically enough, because Microsoft passed it up once before, the first Guitar Hero was supposed to be on Xbox only, and they said no, so they went to Sony. So I think it's franchises like that. But then that begs the question: if Phil Spencer does go full madman and commits to everything on Xbox, and then Games Pass does end up on PlayStation, I really don't see the point. I mean, aside from God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, but then again, you're seeing Sony now go the route of putting their games on PC. And this is the problem I've had as a PC gamer, and kind of why I haven't tried super hard to find a Series X, is that I have a 3080 Ti in my build. There is literally, and I have Games Pass, so there's no fucking incentive for me to go out and buy a Series X for Halo Infinite when my machine shits on the Series X running a Halo Infinite. And you know, if these Sony games are going to be ported on PC, and they have to now because the chip shortage isn't letting PS5s get out there anytime soon. In fact, they're making 1 million more PS4 units this year to try to offset that, which I don't think really makes any sense either. But you know, it's one of those things where I really think Microsoft has put PlayStation gamers in the same position Xbox gamers were 6 years ago. 5 or 7 years ago, however long the fucking consoles launched.
The thing is that Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard is such a big deal that can Sony come back from that?
I don't think so. And to get to the point I was getting to before, like again, even if they were to expand their PlayStation Now service, rebrand it, they don't have the technology to run those server blades like Microsoft does. Like, even if tomorrow Microsoft were like, all right, we're doing all cloud gaming, good luck. They've proven their shit works.
Yep. Yeah,
Sony's PlayStation Now service is still garbage. Those games still, like, it's better than what it was, but those games stream like doggy doo-doo, man. It's not good.
Compared to the cloud gaming that Xbox provides, it's nowhere even near. It's
like, dude, when Dragon Ball FighterZ, I think it's still on Games Pass, but when it first launched, I played it on my phone streaming at my dad's office, which has horrible internet, by the way, and it ran fine. It ran fine.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. Sony really, they have to compete and respond, obviously, because that's their job as a company. Like, well, that's their perceived job. But I don't think there is an actual way to respond aside from either adding Games Pass to their platform, which I really don't see happening, or really delving into their backwards compatibility and just being overall more consumer friendly. Because, for example, you know, they take 30%, or I think Steam does. I don't know how much Sony takes, but they make a good money off those microtransactions from Call of Duty and games like that. I don't think games like Warzone will disappear off the platform because, again, Warzone generates a lot of money. Yeah, let's go into the Activision, Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard. Today, Phil Spencer said, and I'm pulling up his tweet here. He said, "Had good calls this week with leaders at Sony. I confirmed our intent to honor all existing agreements upon acquisition of Activision Blizzard and our desire to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. Sony is an important part of our industry and we value our relationship." The wording in that tweet, he said the
so
same
vague.
shit with Bethesda. He said the same exact shit. And now look at Starfield being exclusive.
Yeah, I completely agree. And now that brings to question what will happen to the future of big IPs, probably one of the biggest IPs to ever exist, like Call of Duty or even World of Warcraft. Could you imagine World of Warcraft coming to the Xbox? Like, that'd be game changing.
So there was a port, and I think, here, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember this years ago. There was like rumors that WoW was trying to get ported to 360, but there was some issues. I do. So here's my thing. Microsoft and Bethesda have been trying to push Fallout 76 more on Xbox. So I don't necessarily ever see WoW coming to console. I could be wrong because, you know, Diablo came to console. We never thought that would ever happen.
Yep. I can honestly see it to be completely fair.
Here's my problem with that though. Because you know how Microsoft has taken a back step in requiring you to need gold to play games like Fortnite or whatever. Let's say if World of Warcraft does get added to Games Pass, do I have to get a separate subscription now for WoW?
You see, that's the beauty of this, is that Microsoft owning the IP can potentially negate the entire subscription based inside of World of Warcraft.
It
It's
can,
like
but remember,
own
a
it.
lot of that subscription cost directly goes into maintaining the game, the servers, the whatnot, and what have you.
No, I understand
You know,
that, but we've seen that in the past couple of years now. I think that World of Warcraft has been declining, and a lot of players have been switching to, I believe it's Final Fantasy 14.
so it declines, but with every new expansion, the player base kind of stabilizes. It goes up and down. It kind of correlates to the expansions. So, you know, I personally think if it does get added to Games Pass and they drop the subscription, or at least at the minimum heavily discount it, then that'll be a way to generate massive players. Because, for example, I want to get into World of Warcraft. It's been a game on my list for at least a decade now. I've never had the time, but more importantly, it's been the barrier of entry has been the subscription costs. Like, I do PlayStation Plus, I pay for Games Pass, I do Nintendo Online. Like, that's a lot of money a year I'm playing just to maintain my gamer lifestyle. And I'm not saying this to brag about what I have or anything. It's just, you know, this is how much I like my games, how much I like the ability to play whatever. And again, it's the value of it too. PlayStation Plus gives me 2 to 4 free games every month. Games with Gold has gotten really shitty in the past year, but the value's still there, and there's still Games Pass. Nintendo Online can honestly quite eat an ass. I mean, the NES and SNES stuff is cool and all, but it's whatever, but at least it's cheap. You know, World of Warcraft, it's just a commitment for that one game. I really think the future of that game has to be in Games Pass, and it just has to be no membership.
Well, I gotta be honest, I completely forgot about Games with Gold, but it just being there just adds even more value to being on the Xbox side of things. I want to switch it over to the big one, in my opinion, which is Call of Duty. Phil Spencer's tweet was vague as to saying that their desire to keep Call of Duty on the PlayStation.
So wait, hold on. That's also vague because he just said Call of Duty. He didn't say specifically which one, which branding of it. He didn't. I don't know if he's talking about Call of Duty as a brand because again, I think he's referring to just Warzone.
Right, and
I don't think he's referring.
We can't even overlook the word here, desire. You know, you got to put that into quotations because, in my opinion, this is what's going to happen. Warzone will stay multi-plat, but if you want to experience the next AAA Call of Duty experience, you're gonna have to subscribe to Game Pass in a way. And in my opinion, this is the end game move. This is the ultimate. This is the ultimate check. So
No, I agree because remember when we were kids, the exclusivity that Microsoft had with Infinity Ward and Activision.
right,
We got the maps
right.
A
But
lot of
this is
PlayStation
gonna
gamers
go-
like to forget that.
Right, this is gonna go beyond that though. I don't think that's enough. In my opinion, that's just not enough to bring to the Xbox side of things, especially after paying $70 billion. You don't pay $70 billion just to get things early.
70 billion cash, by the way. That's not like what they did with Bethesda where there were stock options. Like they use half of their war chest, half of the money they have. They have $140 billion. They spent half of that to buy this.
I think Microsoft's spending cap is, I saw it was about $2.8 trillion, which is fucking insane, dude. But I think this move is to, you see, what I got from Phil Spencer's tweet is that it sounds like on the phone, Phil Spencer talked to the head of Sony and said, look, man, we have your child. You can give us the money and you can get him back, or we keep him. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it just makes Game Pass even that much more enticing. And I honestly think when he says here, I confirmed our intent to honor all existing agreements upon acquisition of Activision Blizzard and our desire to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation.
See, the word I would look for that's more suspect is existing agreements. Because remember,
Right.
he said that exact same thing for Bethesda games. And like, you know,
Right.
Starfield, like now is the reason why Starfield is more than likely going to be an Xbox only game, or at least a Microsoft only game, is because that wasn't a deal that was made yet. It wasn't a deal set in stone.
Well, you can
And
also look at things like Fallout 76, which already had an existing contract with Sony, or even what was the mobile Fallout game?
Shelter.
Fallout Shelter, exactly. Those are already on the PlayStation platform. I think it would be a negative look to take those things away. Like, for example, if someone signs into their PlayStation one day and all of a sudden those games were no longer available to the PlayStation public.
Yeah.
That would be really bad. The word is our desire to keep Call of Duty PlayStation on PlayStation. That's what I'm looking at here. Our desire. So what I feel is, on the phone, Phil Spencer said, look, let us put Game Pass on your platform and you can have these games back. No problem. But you see, the thing is, Sony is so xenophobic that they're just like, they might think about it. And honestly, if I was the head of Sony right now, this was definitely a discussion being talked about at the head of Sony right now. Should we put Game Pass on our platform?
See, and here's why, at least in Sony's interest, it's a bad idea to put Games Pass on there. So, for example, if you play Warzone through the PSN, you're paying Sony, like Sony gets a cut of that money. However, let's say you launch Modern Warfare, not Warzone, Modern Warfare, it's on Game Pass only, right? And you want to buy whatever, Battle Pass, I don't know what the fuck they do with microtransactions. Because you're logging into a Microsoft version of the game, an Xbox version, you're not using the PSN to buy your microtransactions. So they're not seeing a cut of that money. They're just getting a check from Microsoft just to have that on there. So now, me as Sony's accountant, I got to do the math and figure out, am I in the long run going to make more money having Microsoft cut me checks for the licensing fee, or am I going to get more money from microtransactions from just having my own version of Call of Duty? And I think that's the kind of the crossroads Sony's at, because again, a lot of their gaming revenue comes from those fees from, like, let's say FIFA Ultimate Team, Apex Legends, Call of Duty Warzone, like those microtransactions. I think that's a big
day, in my opinion, Microsoft owns it anyway. So you might as well put it on your platform, so at least you have the chance of people buying your console, even though at this point it's almost they get a PC or an Xbox.
You're not thinking of the bigger picture, though. For example, the consoles aren't profitable. Most of them are either sold at a loss or a very, very slim margin. Where they make their money back is the software development. And even now, a lot of Sony's first-party games, they don't have microtransactions. They're all story mode, and they do sell a lot, but their value drops. Like, look at The Last of Us 2. The year it launched, it was $20 on Black Friday, and not because it was a bad game. The game sold fucking X amount of millions of copies, and that's the problem. It's the revenue stream coming in. These I don't want to call them lesser games, but these games that are meant to just be milk cows, cash cows. That's the big issue there. That's where Sony's losing a lot of money, and it is going to become a big issue that they have to decide on relatively soon. Because look how expensive the first God of War 4, not the first, the God of War 4 was, and how cutting edge it was, and how they pretty much had to beg for a PC port just to be like, hey, people want this, it's going to sell more.
But we know that Call of Duty is PlayStation's #1 selling franchise. So we have to go back to, can Sony really bounce back from this? I think there is a slim chance. It's just such a big acquisition, man, that I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's
because, see, the problem is that I don't think they will, because again, like we've seen what happens when you have the flow of exclusives. Everybody goes there for their multiplats. Like, remember when we were kids, everybody played FIFA and Madden on Xbox. Once PS4 got big, everybody played FIFA and Madden on PS4 and 2K and all that stuff. It's kind of that migration, and as a result, all those millions of people spending millions of dollars on those microtransactions now occurred on PlayStation platform and not Xbox platforms. And it's going to ultimately become a game of numbers and sustainability. Like, for example, $70 billion to buy Activision is a lot of money, but Microsoft thinks not in days, not in weeks, not in months, but in decades. They're looking at this 20 years down the line and saying, oh shit, this is going to make us a lot of money. And I think Sony...
What Microsoft is saying is 10 years down the line, your grandparents are going to have an Xbox account.
Exactly. Not an Xbox account.
Exactly.
And I think, and don't get me wrong, Microsoft has figured it out. I think they figured it out more than Sony, where, and I'm an old school gamer. I do not want to see console generations go away.
I gotta be honest. when the Xbox One was announced with the whole DRM controversy,
the Connect shit.
right? I think Xbox already had an idea of where they wanted to go, but it was just executed and advertised so poorly that it kind of turned off the average gamer off.
It was too ahead of its time, and that's a fact, because internet wasn't as good in 2013 as it is in 2022, and that's an actual fact. Speeds across the country weren't there yet to where you can go to all digital future. You want an even better example? Look at the PS Vita. That was just a prototype Switch. That was ahead of its time. Same thing with the PSP Go, going all digital in a time that wasn't ready for it yet. And
Right.
I think now Microsoft, they learned from their mistakes. They realized, oh shit, nobody's watching TV anymore. They're watching Netflix, which I don't understand why they removed the ability to snap Netflix while you play your game.
Dude, I miss that ability so much, Jesus.
I don't get why that's gone, yet they still ship the damn console with 2 HDMI ports. Like, why is that useful? I don't understand that.
So is it safe to say that this is Microsoft versus PlayStation rather than Xbox versus PlayStation?
Absolutely, yeah. I 100% think, but they didn't abandon the console thing. They're looking at the console as just another way to get you to Games Pass. Like, look at the Series S.
No.
The Series S is a fantastic deal for somebody who doesn't play games and wants to get into games.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
I actually kind of want both of them. Well, I already have a Series X, but I kind of want a Series S to hook up to my, my monitor from my PC.
See, I want the Series X for my game setup on my desk, and I want a Series S for my living room so I can watch 4K Blu-rays with my girlfriend, have her play Xbox games like the Middle Earth Shadow Mortal. They're not Xbox games, but they're the games I have on Xbox. Like, things like that. Like, see, Microsoft has done themselves where they've made 2 types of consoles: your main and your side console,
And both very appealing.
Yeah, they're both very appealing. Like one of my girlfriend's coworkers, he has the Series S, and he was playing Halo Infinite just fine on it, and he had a great time on it. He recommends it. And the size factor is cool. Everything about what Microsoft is doing this generation is so pro-consumer, as opposed to Sony, whose only alternative is, all right, here's a disk driveless model and here's a disk drive model, and that's just to incentivize people to just buy it on the store so they reclaim more of the profit. Which that's not super really consumer, because, for example, if they found a way to downscale their games and do something like with Microsoft's technology, and they made a cheaper version of the PS5, I think there'd be more PS5s around to actually buy. But because they were so embedded on this architecture, it's shooting them in the foot. Not even architecture, this kind of business philosophy.
Microsoft seems like the more progressive company at this point.
Which is weird, because when the Xbox One made its debut, they weren't like that. But then again, it was a major leadership change. You had Phil Spencer, who was growing in the Xbox ecosystem, finally take over. And I think once he rose to the occasion, once he was promoted, it's been a complete 180. Like I tell people all the time, like, this isn't the Xbox we knew from 2013. This is a whole different thing.
Definitely. I think the Xbox brand was always, like I said, it was always going to be this progressive. It's just that at the beginning, in 2013, when they had Don Matrick at head, it's just that he was so bad at just voicing the head of Xbox that he kind of just didn't send the right message. But the whole DRM thing was ahead of its time, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it was ahead of its time. I think it was a little silly to have the constantly checking in. Like, for example, I like the fact that if the internet goes out due to like a outage or something, a storm, I can still access my Games Pass games for at least a week. I don't know how long the check-in is. I think it's a month actually. But yeah, I don't know. Now I'm even less incentivized to get a PS5. Like, to be honest, the only game I want a PS5 for is God of War Ragnarok, and I might just wait a year for them to put it on PC. Like, I have a whole slew of backlog of games I still have to get through. Games Pass just got a bunch of EA games too. I have things to play.
In a separate video, I kind of made a prediction saying, I have a feeling, now it's just a prediction and I could very well be wrong, but I have a feeling God of War is going to be the first PlayStation game we see on Game Pass if Game Pass comes to PlayStation.
Nah, you're bugging. I don't. You're bugging.
No,
You
I'm
are
telling you, dude.
bugging.
I'm telling you, I've got a sixth sense for these kinds of things.
Here's
And-
here's why. Here's why you're bugging.
Okay, tell me.
When Sony bought Insomniac, people swore up and down Sunset Overdrive was gonna get a port because Insomniac owned. No, that didn't happen. That shit. God of War, dude. Kratos is like PlayStation's daddy. That's Sony's daddy. They're not giving up God of War.
Well,
That-
but it's just that Microsoft.
I think Spider-Man has a better chance of going on Xbox than God of War.
Now that seems a little bit too far-fetched, considering the fact that Spider-Man still has ties to Sony in the cinematic industry.
And Spider-Man has ties to Activision. Remember, Activision was the sole publisher of Spider-Man games until they lost the license and it went to Sony.
Well, they lost the license. I think that in and of itself is.
No, they didn't lose it. They just chose not to renew because it was too expensive.
But Sony picked it up, though, right?
They've always, I think the rights retained back to them. Like there's a certain like clause in those contracts where if you don't do anything with the property, it goes back to the owner.
Well, Sony bought Insomniac Games, and it's kind of like their property now. I see that as how Microsoft bought out Activision. It's kind of like the same deal with Spider-Man. That's why I kind of don't see.
Spider-Man is a little bit different because ultimately Disney is the rights holder. So Disney can just go to Microsoft and cut them a deal. Like for instance, like I'm a big fan of the older Activision games like Web of Shadows, Shadow Dimensions. There is literally probably nothing stopping Disney from going to Microsoft and saying, hey, I want to cut a deal. I want to relist these games back on GamePass only, which I would love to see a world where all the Sam Raimi Spider-Man games get added, the amazing Spider-Man games get added. Hell, even add that shitty Friend or Foe game that was awful back on a GamePass. Like the only good thing is that with this deal, aside from people being all gloom and doom, like, oh, big companies controlling everything, is that some of our lost media might have a chance to come back with all this big money floating around.
No, definitely, and Guitar Hero is definitely one of them that I'm
hope.
looking forward to coming back. Actually, Phil Spencer name dropped Guitar Hero today.
Dude, Guitar Hero got mentioned twice today, once by Bobby Kotick and once by Phil Spencer. So now there is something up with that. Like, because remember, nobody's mentioned Guitar Hero since Guitar Hero Live. Right. Nobody's talked about it once, like nobody has had any interest. And now that, they're talking about games like Guitar Hero and possibly Skylanders coming back, I don't give a fuck about Skylanders, but Guitar Hero, I hope that, especially because Phil Spencer is a gamer, he's a fucking nerd, he's one of us.
Yeah, I got him added on my Xbox. He's on my Xbox friends list.
Oh, that's cool. I hope because he understands what the core Guitar Hero was. I don't want the drums. I don't want vocals. I don't want 6 black and white buttons. I want red. I want green, red, yellow, blue, orange, Les Paul guitar, 2 guitars. 4 guitars. I don't give a fuck. I just want guitars. I don't want any of this bullshit. Even do what we talked about this in our group chat today. Do what Guitar Hero Live did. If they can't afford the constant licensing fees to have a static set list, then change the set list every 6 months. I don't care. Make it a live service game. Just bring it back to form and change the game out every 6 months. That's fine.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because for example, I wouldn't be opposed to, all right, for the next 6 months, here's your set list, because that's how bands operate. A band doesn't play the same set list for their entire fucking career, except if you're Green Day. Dude, I've seen Green Day 3 fucking times, and each show was the same. Oh, minus like 5 songs they swap out for whatever album they're touring. But yeah, every time I've seen them, I'm like, all right, here's American Idiot for the 3rd time. Yeah, but I mean, Basket Case is fine to listen to, especially live. It's pretty cool.
Well, you always gotta have those iconic songs in the set list. That's just how music works.
See, that's why, if I ever get big into music, if I ever fucking make it big, I kind of hope I can attain medium success, because I don't want my fans to just expect certain songs. Because then I don't want, because if you ever heard the story of Creep, they hate playing Radiohead. They hate playing Creep.
Well, it might be your 3rd time, but it's someone else's 1st time.
That's true. Yeah, I have to remember that too, especially when I saw them. I went to the Mega Tour last year, and there were a lot of young kids going with their dads for the first time, whole families of 4 going to the show. So that's also a good point. I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who's been to literally 100 concerts.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know. I've seen Metallica 5 times, but Metallica has a very diverse set list every time.
Exactly. They have 10 albums, 9 or 10. How many do they have?
I don't even know. Like, I think they're like going on 13 or something like that right now.
Jesus.
Off the top of my head. Yeah, they've been around for a while.
But yeah, you know, I really think, you know, it's going to be interesting. We're definitely not going to see much progress this year in terms of like the deal, because it still has to get approved by the Federal Trade Commission and all that stuff. I think 2023 and 4 is going to be where we see the progress of this, like where is this leading to. So now I think we just got to sit tight and watch the fanboys eat each other's heads off.
Yep, I agree. And I think we pretty much covered everything as far as that goes. Anything else you wanted to add, Chaz, before we sign off?
I want to talk about Halo Infinite for a little bit and how it's still a big mess. So today, let me pull up the article from The Verge. So a hot fix went out today to fix Big Team Battle and a few other things. So this is, me personally, this issue has affected me. A lot of the weekly challenges I get, at least prior to the Big Team Battle kerfuffle, have needed Big Team Battle for me to go on and like play matches. Dude, I can't get into a match to save my fucking life.
Yeah.
And it's not just me. Look at the Halo subreddit, it's bad. And this is starting to annoy me where, you know, like I'm taking off the rose tinted glasses now and realizing just how much of a mess this game is. And don't get me wrong, like I love the game, I love the multiplayer, but it's frustrating. And see, I don't know how to hate Halo Infinite because I didn't pay for it. It was on GamePass.
Yeah, like it kind of, I'm not saying it gets a free pass, but you can kind of forgive its faults a little bit.
See, it all depends. It all depends how you got it. If you bought it on Steam for $60, or you bought the like for instance, if I bought this game as a disc, I'd be fucking mad. There's no forge, theater barely works, the multiplayer works when it wants to, and campaign, depending on your machine, runs great or shitty. But I'm on PC. I got it on Game Pass. So like, therefore I'm like, oh, I can't really shit on this too much. Like that's why, for example, I don't shit on Mass Effect Andromeda as much, because I didn't pay $60 for it. I waited a year and I paid $20 for it. I'm like, oh, this is a fun $20 game. Obviously, you know, that's not the context of the full game itself, but that's the thing. What is the context of Halo Infinite? Is it a full $60 AAA experience? Is it a free-to-play continuous live service game? Like, and I think that's the problem, is that the more I take a step back and I sit down, like when I'm at my desk at work and I think about Halo Infinite, which, yeah, I'm a fucking nerd, I apparently do that. You know, I really think this game might have been a little too ambitious for what it is. And a part of me wishes the multiplayer and the campaign, which they kind of are, but I wish they were two separate games. But then I think about it, it's like, yeah, this really probably wouldn't have sold well if they launched the campaign as its own experience, and then, you know, which they kind of did now, but like if the multiplayer was called something else and the campaign was called something else, I don't think it would have worked out. This is the only, I guess, feature aside from another delay where this works out. And it's just frustrating because, you know, like this is the one good first party game that we've had in a long time, and it's still not great. I mean, it's good, but it's not great, and it's just disappointing.
I get where you're coming from, and I think that just brings us back to the topic of Game Pass, because I think that's where most people got to play Halo Infinite off of. And it shows that with Game Pass, you kind of have a bit of a armor, like plot armor there. You know what I'm saying? Like you can go into a game and it could be completely trash, but you didn't really lose much by playing the game. You didn't pay for it. You didn't really, you know, you haven't invested enough into saying, oh man, that sucked. You know, you just played one flat fee. And if you didn't like the game, uninstall it, and you can go right ahead and install something else. That's just the beauty of Game Pass and how progressive it's been for Microsoft.
Yeah, and see, here's the thing. You know, a lot of people are saying, oh, Game Pass takes money away from devs. First of all, a lot of indie devs come out and said that the Game Pass has put their games on the roadmap. Like people go out and buy them. And see, like for example, you know Paper Mario?
Yep, of course.
So have you ever heard of Bug Fables?
No, I have not.
So Bug Fables is kind of like a spiritual successor. It's like an indie game, but it's the exact same art style as Paper Mario. I saw like a video essay on it like a year ago, and it intrigued me. I never had the time to go around and play it. it was added on Games Pass, and it's been on there for like almost like 7 months. I fell in love with this game to the point where I bought it on Xbox and on Steam just to support the developers. And I think, you know, people are misinterpreting Games Pass. It's not like Netflix where, you know, it's your media in lieu of going out to the movies, in lieu of buying DVDs. Games Pass for me, because these games aren't on this service forever, I think of it as, like, remember going to Blockbuster on Hollywood Video as a kid? You would rent the game you want until it was your birthday, then you bought it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like, for me, it's like, okay, this is a way for me to try out games. Like, I would rather have this than demos, to be quite honest. I'd rather have Games Pass than demos.
In other words, it's just like Netflix. Because you can completely say the same exact thing about Netflix. You can go to a Blockbuster or a Hollywood Video and rent this movie with your membership, and, you know, if you didn't like it, you would return it. No.
See, I feel like with games, though, with Games Pass, it's such a more powerful tool because, you know, you can obviously watch a movie over and over and over again.
Yep.
But you kind of lose that effect. Games like Forza, for example, where, yeah, once you do all like the actual like career races, there's still a whole entire racing sim. You can just drive around a whole open world.
Yep.
And, you know, like, you know, having the ability to try out the races and be like, you know what, I want to, even though Forza is always on there, I want to buy this game. You know, or games like Control, for example, and you want to support Remedy. You know, now it doesn't really matter because they're always going to be on there. But, you know, let's say, for example, I never played Final Fantasy 13. And now I buy it, I'm like, oh man, I want to go and like buy a bunch of Square Enix games and make sure these Final Fantasy games sell, yada yada. Or even like indie games like the Outer Wilds, for example, which I never would have played until it was on Games Pass. Stuff like that. And then now it incentivizes me to support these developers instead of being like, all right, on to the next one. You know, I don't mind, you know, buying these games after on Games Pass because I don't know if they're going to be forever on Games Pass.
Yep. And you know, if you enjoy the game enough to want to buy it, Game Pass actually offers you a discount on the game if it's still on there. Yeah.
Like for instance, like stupid game I downloaded, but I was just curious. Ben 10 Power Trip was added to Games Pass on PC, and I'm like, oh, fuck it, I'll play a Ben 10 game. And right here, if you buy it, it's $30 instead of $40. Like, I think that's cool, and people are missing that. Sony, you know, they don't offer a lot of deals on their games, and when they do, they're really shitty, especially digitally.
It's just Game Pass has just added a whole new flexibility to the gaming industry. It really is insane. It's innovative.
Yeah, I really do think it's innovative not only on a consumer aspect but on a accessibility aspect, because again, like I said before, there have been days where if I'm stuck at work, I pull up my phone and I play Halo Wars on my phone. You know, we're living in the future we only fantasized about as kids, and it's incredible. Like now, like remember when we were kids and the problem is, oh, we can't afford these games, we're stuck playing fucking World at War Zombies. Now my problem is I can't play all these games. Like, dude, I still have a backlog from games I bought during my Black Fridays in college. Like I've been graduate for like almost 3 years now. Like, I just don't have the time, and I think that's a fantastic problem to have. The fact that I have too many games, I have too big of a backlog. I think that this is fantastic. I think Microsoft has done a complete 180, or do a pun 360 if you have you, and they've just gone back to being for the gamers, and I love it. You know, especially they're improving the Xbox app on PC with more and more updates. Like party chat is finally stable after X amount of time. You know, I really do think that the future of gaming is with Microsoft, and I don't want to sound like a shill, but you know, people can call it anti-consumer, anti-monopoly, but if they're making it easier for you to access these games and more affordable, I don't see what the problem is. Especially when, you know, they're still encouraging their teams to be creative as possible. Like, people want to shit on Halo Infinite and Microsoft for the state of the monetization. That wasn't Microsoft, that was 343. 343's higher ups wanted to monetize the game.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's just, yeah. Game Pass has just added a whole new level of enjoying games. It's just, it's unprecedented. We're living in an age where we're kind of saving money, you know, with Game Pass versus spending here. And this is another thing that Game Pass has over Sony right now is that, imagine you're constantly paying, I think the new rate for a brand new game is $70 now versus $15 a month, and I think Game Pass has a yearly option.
Yes, I do that. So Games Pass yearly is $180 a month. So let's lowball it. Let's say some games are $60. Like for example, the Series X games are still $60. 60 times 3 is 180. So and on average, a study came out a few years ago. The average gamer only buys 2 to 3, at most 4 games a year, and 2 of them are sports games, and 1 usually is a Call of Duty. So right then and there, my 180 is giving me my yearly fix for the games. If I just charge another 180 to my card, and now all of a sudden I have 200 games on PC? Yeah, it's a fucking no-brainer. I haven't had to buy an Xbox game in 2 years.
Yeah, me too. And and now with Game Pass, you have all these games that you would have never thought you would have played ever in your life. And you just have, it's as simple as going into the catalog and saying, oh, what's this? This looks interesting. I'll download it and play it with my included fee.
Yeah, like for a lot of the indie games I'm into now, I'm not trashing indie games, but when I was in college and tight on money, I didn't have a lot of money to spend on $20, $30 games every now and then. I would save up for Black Friday and just buy whatever. And a lot of times indie games aren't physical on Black Friday. Now, with good Games Pass, it's like, oh shit, if I have a free weekend, let's check out, I don't know, One Step from Eden. Yeah, let's check out Anno. Honestly,
Game Pass is a godsend for these indie developers because they've just been, it's like before, back in the 360 days or even the early Xbox One days or early PlayStation days, I really wouldn't find it, I wouldn't really find too many indie games that appeal to me, or having to have me go into my wallet and dish out, $20, $30 from. And now with Game Pass, it's like going to a library and reading and just picking up a book and just reading it. It's just you have these new stories to tell because of what Game Pass has to offer. And I think this is why Game Pass, in my opinion, could just change the entire gaming industry forever. After this is almost no going back.
I agree. And, this is something where I like to kind of bring the conversation full circle. Sony is at a fork in the road right now. They have to decide, how do we compete? Do we even compete the way we have to? Or do we go all in on where we're going to make a massive PlayStation ecosystem? Because now, the ball is in their court. They got to figure something out.
Right. Another thing, too, is that can PlayStation come out with a service fast enough to make Game Pass less appealing, and can they dish out the content?
Yeah, because again, a lot of their games, like their first party games coming up, aside from Horizon Zero Dawn, are still in limbo, or not limbo. They're still waiting to be released. God of War is still in development. I think it's coming out in a few months. Spider-Man 2, I think we just got a release date, or we're getting one soon. It's one of those things where the only saving grace I can think of, Kevin, for PlayStation might be the PSVR 2, because PSVR was a runaway success. If they find a way to capitalize on that, but then again, this headset's going to be expensive. It's not going to be cheap. So that's going to be another thing too.
Yeah, it's going to be just as much as the console, that's for sure. And who knows, the scalpers are going to scalp the shit out of that too.
And again, what's stopping Microsoft from saying, oh, those HP Reverb headsets that cost $300? Yeah, they work on our console. Because remember, Flight Sim was the first Microsoft game to support VR. Yep. And that's now on Xbox. I mean, it doesn't support VR on Xbox yet, but what's stopping them? Like, for example, what's stopping them from allowing the Quest 2 to use their USB-C cable to connect to an Xbox?
Honestly, right. Like, what if Microsoft cuts a deal with Facebook or Metaverse now and says the Oculus Quest 2 or the next Oculus Quest is now compatible with the Xbox or PC? Well,
not even that.
It's already compatible with PC.
They take it one step further and make an app like Steam VR, Xbox VR, just say, all right, any headset on this list works. Like, what's stopping them? And that's the thing. Anything Sony has to one up Microsoft because of the platform of Windows and how this ecosystem is built, they can just, all right, use your own shit. Yeah. Like, what's stopping them? And that's the thing. Unless PSVR 2 has some killer title or something, or they go all in VR and they bring back PlayStation Home and they make their own metaverse, like what they want to do. I'm having a hard time seeing, aside from singular games like God of War Ragnarok, like Horizon, whatever the sequel's called, like Spider-Man 2. I don't see it. Like, I don't see it. And this is coming from somebody who loves PlayStation games like Ratchet and Clank, like Demon's Souls, which nobody's talking about them now. Once they've come and gone.
Yeah. I mean, well, I still hear Demon's Souls coming up a lot. Well, not Demon's Souls, Bloodborne. I hear Bloodborne coming up a lot.
Bloodborne, that's because people are begging for a 60 FPS patch, because even the PS4 Pro had a 30 FPS. People are begging for Bloodborne to be better. And that's the issue again. Why hasn't Sony tried to push for that? Why hasn't Sony worked, unless they're waiting for a PS5 port of Bloodborne, which again, very anti-consumer, because what was the point of making the PS4 then if those games weren't getting, the PS4 Pro, if those games weren't getting.
And we've already seen Xbox go back to even 360 games.
Dude, Xbox original games are upscaled.
Yeah, they're upscaled and have a higher frame rate even.
Like, see, like
those games are included in Game Pass.
That's what I don't understand. Like, Sony, I don't understand why they're so anti-backwards compatible. Especially, these were the guys that put PS2 chips in the first wave of PS3s.
Yep. It's
so
just
that's what I don't understand.
Sony's philosophy is just outdated, and honestly, if they don't change their ways, I dare I say this could be the end for PlayStation.
I don't necessarily think it'll be the end, because there's always going to be Kratos, there's always going to be Ratchet and Clank. I just think the console wars are going to shift back to what they were, in 2007, where 360 reigned supreme until the end of the generation when Last of Us launched. And even then,
yeah, I don't I think this time Microsoft is going to reign king for a much longer period.
And see, the sad reality is that, at least back when we were kids, it was Microsoft, Xbox, and Nintendo in competition. Now Nintendo is in the league of its own because the Switch is a unique product.
Right.
So Microsoft doesn't view them as a threat because Nintendo doesn't view them as a threat. In fact, there's overlap. Most people who own an Xbox or PS4 also own a Switch now because one, the Switch is affordable. Two, the league of games on Switch is just different. You can play Brawlhalla on whatever, but who the fuck wants to play Brawlhalla compared to Smash?
Right. Yeah, exactly. If I get if I'm getting a Switch, it's gonna be to play Smash, the
Mario
new
Kart, Pokemon, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Pokemon, exactly. Yeah.
And see, that's what people don't get, is that Nintendo has it figured out where they've made a console ecosystem for specific games. And the problem is that, there's God of War, but there's also Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, which is just female God of War. Yeah, there's Spider-Man, but there's Sunset Overdrive. Yeah, there's Uncharted, but there's Tomb Raider. Probably not a good example because it's on everything, but you get the point, because that was an Xbox exclusive for a little bit. There's a response for everything Sony for everything Sony has that Microsoft has, but there hasn't been a response. Like, the closest I think PlayStation got was Harvest Moon for Animal Crossing, and even then, I wasn't into that game. Sony still really hasn't nailed first-person shooters. Like, Killzone is alright series, but the last one, Killzone Shadowfall, was so bad they haven't gone back to the series. Haze, that PS3 shooter, was fucking ass. Remember Mag, the fucking massive game that didn't do well?
Yeah, it didn't do well, but I do remember some of my friends playing it, and they said, "Oh, this game is freaking amazing." It was it did try new things when it came out. I think the lobbies were up to 100 players, and this was before Battlefield. So, it did do some things. I do remember Mag. I would like to see some kind of revival of that franchise, because Mag just lasted one IP. It would be interesting to see if that would come back or something similar. But
that's the issue, though. Sony abandons IPs too quickly.
That is another topic, and also Call of Duty has a legacy, and Microsoft buying out Activision and acquiring a game like Call of Duty that's a big dick move, man. Like, it's just like, you bought something that has tenure. Like, people are emotionally attached to this series. If Mag came out tomorrow and it was abandoned the next day, nobody would really care.
No, nobody would care.
So I don't know, man. This is well, at this point we're kind of repeating ourselves, but what can Sony really do other than sure they can bring back the backwards compatibility catalog, but is that going to be enough?
I to be honest, they're, at least for me as a consumer, they have to differentiate. Like I said before, heavily invest in PSVR. I think that's going to be like their main draw at this point, because again, you are right. Backwards compatibility can only get you so far.
All right. Anything else we want to talk about here, Chaz?
Let me check my notes real quick. Just real quick, I want to talk about the Intel 11th and 12th gen new processors can no longer support Blu-rays. Apparently, it's only 4K Blu-rays according to the update, which that's not as big of a deal. But like for example, a lot of home theater enthusiasts run 4K Blu-rays through their PC to watch things, and I think that's kind of a weird thing. According to this article, there's something called SGX, which is like their technology. It's proprietary and it's just too costly to produce, which I just don't like features being taken away over time. I don't know how that's gonna impact gaming in the long run. I don't think it necessarily will. We haven't used physical discs for PCs in a long time. Like, I have a USB external disk drive just to burn CDs, but that's really it. Just a little gaming computer tidbit, especially we're PC gamers as well. We like custom builds. I just think it's shitty getting features stripped away, especially being able to watch movies on my PC. A lot of people do that. A lot of people don't have big houses. Their desk is their whole entire entertainment center. So it's just more features being taken away, not good, especially when you have consoles that are playing 4K Blu-rays and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then we have the 3090 Ti delayed due to some BIOS issues and motherboards overheating. As somebody who owns a 3080 Ti, I can attest that these cards run fucking hot. Like, in fact, the other day I actually, whenever I play Flight Sim or Halo Infinite, I have to take the front panel of my PC off so it doesn't overheat. I left Flight Sim downloading and running by accident, and I left the front panel on. My shit overheated. I had to fucking open and fucking fan it out for a little bit. I am working on rebuilding my PC to be optimized, but yeah, it's just it's more delays, especially at a time where chips are hard to get as it is. Like right now, I'm sourcing parts for my girlfriend's computer, and that's kind of annoying right now. So the fact that we're seeing more delays, we're not having products come in, it's a very weird time to be a gamer. We're lucky we had our hardware before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, definitely. And it's only going to get even more tough, I think.
Yeah, Nvidia is saying it's going to last for most of the first half of this year. Maybe it's going to start getting better. But then again, with this stupid fucking Omicron shit, people aren't going back to work. Like at my company, a third of the workforce across the country is out. So now they're flying.
See a major chip drought. I can see this going on for maybe even a few years.
Yeah, dude, for example, a lot of the machines we work on at my job, they're running 1650s and 1070s and 2060s, common graphics cards. And it's just so hard to fix these machines now. Like we have VR games, we have regular arcade games. Like we have Halo Fireteam Raven, the game at Dave and Buster's. We're in charge of that. The Marvel Contest of Champions, dude, those just have Dell Optiplexes with fucking 2060s in them. So when one of those breaks, we're sometimes waiting 1 to 3 months for a card to come in, and that's if we get lucky. I got lucky. I got my 3080 Ti because I went to Micro. I live 15 minutes from Micro Center, so I would go every single day after work to check, and I just got lucky one day. I went to go get lunch from my halal spot, and there it was. I feel bad for let's say you're 14, 15, 16, you work your first summer job, you save up all year, and you can't fucking buy a computer. I feel bad for people, man.
Yeah, I'm struggling, dude. I still have a fucking 1060 3GB GPU, dude.
So I was doing research. Those cards are a fucking ripoff. They're just 1050s.
Yeah, I can imagine, dude. It just came. It came with my pre-built, so I said.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
It works. It does what it has to do. I can play games like Rainbow Six Siege. Runs pretty well.
Siege, I've been watching a lot of builders do low-end builds. Siege runs very well. It's a very well optimized. I don't know what Ubisoft did. I don't know who they sold their soul to, whose dick they sucked to get that to work right. But that is surprising that it runs even on high at 1080p. Yep. You're getting 150 frames even on the shittiest rigs. I'm very surprised.
Yeah, I agree. All right then. So I don't know if there's really anything else to talk about, Chaz.
I'm all good if you want to wrap up.
All right, yeah, let's wrap this up. So, we covered the Game Pass on PlayStation. We've covered GPU shortages. So, this is it for this episode. If you guys want to subscribe, give us a like. We'd greatly appreciate that. I'm Kevin. This is my boy Chaz.
What's up?
We're a fairly new channel, and if you guys like our content, just follow us. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.